Is it safe to travel to Jamaica right now? If this is your question, the short answer is yes, and Jamaica is safer now than it has ever been in the last 20 years. And I'm not the only one saying it. The US Travel Advisory is saying it now as well. The latest update placed Jamaica at level 2, which is the same safety level as many Western European countries. One of the reasons is the huge reduction in crime that we've had in Jamaica in the last couple of years. So before we move on to the details of the travel advisory, let's look at the crime situation first. If you're new here, my name is Irina. I've been a resident in Jamaica for 11 years now, and it's during this time that major steps were taken by the government to address the crime situation in Jamaica, and we can see the results right now. Last year, the homicide rate dropped by almost 20%, which is the first time we have seen such a decrease in over 20 years. And in 2025, the trend continues and the number of homicides and other crimes keeps reducing. The official statistics currently show a further 43% drop in murders from last year. Yes, I've been looking at it thinking I should make a separate video dedicated to it and interview a few people who are involved in this progress. But for now, I'm just observing and holding my breath. You know, whatever they're doing, it's working, just let them keep doing it. But I've seen some comments on social media claiming that maybe they're messing around with the statistics because election is coming up and they want to make it look good. But guys, there are international organizations in Jamaica that also collect statistics independently. And I'm sure if a government could do something like this, they would have done it a long time ago. So we wouldn't have had Jamaica as a country with one of the highest crime rates for all those past years. But they cannot do any of these manipulations because it wouldn't match the independent research. So yes, crime has been going down, and it is fantastic news, particularly for the locals and the residents like myself, because crime has never really affected tourists that much anyway. Jamaica has always been quite safe for tourists, definitely much safer than some major cities in the US, for instance. But crime was and still is an issue for certain groups of local population. So seeing a trend with reduction in crime right now, in my opinion, is an outstanding achievement for Jamaica as a country. And yes, we are going to have an election soon, and I just hope that whichever party comes to power, the trend with reduction in crime will continue. Now to the US Travel Advisory for Jamaica. It has proved to be an important piece of information that a lot of travelers rely on when thinking of visiting Jamaica. And it's interesting that it's not just US citizens who do that. People from other countries also look at it as guidance for their trip. And in 2024, we had this big scandal with the travel advisory for Jamaica. The US media was pushing the narrative that Jamaica had become extremely dangerous, referring to a new travel advisory at the time and telling people to reconsider travel to Jamaica. It was like an entire media campaign that was totally fabricated, making a lot of false claims. Like the travel warning for Jamaica had been raised when it wasn't, that the crime was going up when it was going down, or that our healthcare system was worse than the one in countries that had no healthcare at all within miles, like some island countries in the Pacific. That media campaign was so wrong that I just had to address it and invested a lot of my time into research and made 2 videos. One is this expose debunking all the media nonsense and the inconsistencies in the travel advisory itself at the time. And the other was just a video explaining what travel advisories are, how they are sometimes used as a political tool, and how reliable the information is. Not my opinion, but the data that I found. So if you ever consider travel advisories before making a travel decision, I do recommend checking out the research in these videos, especially this one. The US government issues travel advisories for every country, and since 2018 they use a 4-level system, from level 1, color-coded blue, showing countries that in their opinion are reasonably safe, to red-coded level 4 saying do not travel. There are also indicators that show why a certain level is assigned, like C for crime risks, H for health, and so on. Travel advisories can be reviewed and updated as often as needed, but at minimum once every year for levels 1 and 2, and once every 6 months for levels 3 and 4. There is also now a very convenient map, which is available on the official US government website, and it allows us to see all countries at a glance according to the assigned levels. The latest update of the US travel advisory for Jamaica was issued on the 29th of May 2025. It shows Jamaica at level 2 saying exercise increased caution, which is the same as it says for the UK, Sweden or Germany. Basically, Jamaica is safe to travel, and this might not look like anything special until you look at what's been happening before. Here's a list of all travel alerts, warnings and advisories issued for Jamaica since 1994. And we can see that when the 4-level system was introduced, Jamaica was placed at level 2. But this changed in 2020 because of COVID. Most countries were placed at level 4, and then it just kept shifting between levels 3 and 4, but only because of the pandemic. Crime was not viewed as a high-level issue until 2022, when the country got level 3 because of crime. It's interesting that nobody really paid any attention to that increase in level, maybe because it was the time of the Russian invasion into Ukraine, so the media was busy with the war. But the fact is, 2022 and 23 were really good years for tourism in Jamaica, and the country made a very strong comeback after COVID. So the fact that the travel advisory was raised so high, saying reconsider travel, didn't really bother anyone until January 2024, when the media campaign was launched directly telling people not to travel to Jamaica because it was dangerous due to crime. The results of that campaign were that a lot of people cancelled their trips and new visitors didn't want to book, and Jamaica had this drop in tourism. And I don't have the exact numbers to show you yet, but from my interaction with a lot of people in the tourism industry, bigger hotels felt it too, but it mostly affected smaller businesses like small tour companies, Airbnbs, craftsmen, people dependent on tourists outside of the resorts. They all struggled. There were several factors, of course, that contributed to this. Like later that year, we also had a hurricane, but the anti-Jamaica travel advisory media campaign in the US played a significant role as well. And to make things worse, the travel advisory itself at the time not only said reconsider travel due to crime, but they also added the healthcare system as a reason, which was totally out of the blue, and they rewrote parts of the advisory using very harsh language that was not typical for travel advisories as such. Here's an example just to compare. In January 2024, this is what the travel advisory said. Violent crimes such as home invasions, armed robberies, sexual assaults, and homicides are common. Sexual assaults occur frequently, including at all-inclusive resorts. Local police often do not respond effectively to serious criminal incidents. Now compare this with the latest travel advisory they issued, where the level was dropped from level 3 to level 2. And this is what they are saying now. While violent crime in Jamaica has decreased since 2024, it remains statistically high throughout the country. Tourist areas generally see lower rates of violent crime than other parts of the country. This is accurate. They acknowledge that crime has decreased, the homicide rates is still high relative to other countries or some of them, but tourist areas have less violent crime and are safer, which is true. And notice how the language changed. It doesn't have any more of those harsh statements and the vague words like common, frequently, often that were present in that scandalous travel advisory that was just so badly written. And that's why I made the video exposing it. And I remember people were sending comments, oh, why make these videos? They're not going to change anything. Jamaica is doomed. What's the point? Well, maybe my video specifically didn't influence that much. It still did a little bit, right? But the important fact is the improvement we see in the travel advisory today didn't just come because the US government suddenly changed its mind or because there was a change in administration in the US. It's actually the work of a lot of people that went into it. First, it's the people who put so much effort into improving Jamaica's safety situation. So we have this huge drop in crime and reduction in poverty. And then, of course, it's the combined work of a lot of stakeholders in the tourism industry, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Jamaican ambassador in the US back then, and the new one today. There was a lot of research and negotiations that were happening. And I know because I also volunteered some of my time, did the research and contributed my work for this. And of course, the government of the United States also reconsidered the travel advisory that was written before and did a lot of work to fix the issues with it, which is a great thing. And now the travel advisory is way more accurate. So the result of the effort by all that team of people is what we see today. Actually, the first improvement to the travel advisory was made in July last year, when they fixed some of the language but kept level 3. And I made an update video back then mentioning that. But it is this May that the US government reissued the travel advisory with a change in level. They removed some parts, rewrote other parts with more appropriate phrasing, and you can just pause the video and compare what it was before and what it is now. Last year, I promised I'd be making updates on travel advisories because of that situation. I do try to find time just in between other content because I still think it's important for us to keep an eye on what's going on with travel advisories and for people who want to travel to Jamaica to know how much they can rely on the information in these documents. So this is the situation with the Jamaica Travel Advisory at the moment. I hope you have found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching. Huge thanks to our patrons. You are the reason I can afford still to keep this channel going. If you would also like to join the patrons and support my work and the channel, you can do so on Patreon from only $5 a month. Thank you once again. You can watch this video next. Bye for now.